So there I was, watching some show on some device, and a trailer pops up for HBO Max's original movie, The Witches. Excuse me? Like a remake of the 1990 classic that I've cherished in my heart for 30 years? Yeah, they remade it, and I'm not happy about it. Before we dive into this, spoilers, because it's a 30-year-old movie. And the new movie, I don't really give a fuck. The year is 1990, and the movie based on the Roald Dahl book. The movie based on the Roald Dahl book, The Witches, it's released. It's a wonderful tale about this boy, Luke, who recently lost his parents, and now he lives with his grandma in the UK. She informs him about witches and her experience with witches and her knowledge about witches, and then they go on a holiday at a hotel by the seaside. And by chance, this holiday takes place at the exact same time as a large conference. This large conference is actually just a front, so a huge group of witches can gather, and the Grand High Witch can tell them her plan of how to eradicate all the children from Earth by turning them into mice. During the Grand High Witch's speech of turning these children into mice, the boy Luke is there, and the witches discover him, and they turn him into a mouse. Now, Mouse Luke and his badass grandma have to find a way to defeat the witches. This movie's very well paced at an hour and a half, and considering it's a kid's movie, it's actually pretty scary. So I just rewatched this movie, and it's as great as I've always remembered. The opening scene of the movie with Luke's grandmother telling him the story of how her friend got trapped in a painting for her entire life actually, freaked me out. This new 2020 movie is basically the same plot. It's based on a book, only for some reason they moved the location from the UK to the United States. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. There's not a comparison at all. The new remake is horrible. What makes it so horrible, you ask? This movie has Oscar winner Anne Hathaway. This movie has Oscar winner Octavia Spencer. And it's directed by Oscar winning Robert Zemeckis. How could it possibly be bad? I'm actually not sure how you can gather all this talent, put it together, and the outcome is a terrible movie. Trust me, it's very bad. And I'm going to tell you why. How about we just discuss the issues that bothered me the most instead of everything? Because then I'd just be talking about the whole movie. The tone of the movie. The original movie starts out kind of scary, and it establishes witches very well. And then after the main children of the movie become mice, the movie becomes more adventurous and lighthearted and more hopeful. The new movie starts out with a narrator. Old movie didn't have a narrator. So this narrator starts telling his story, and the narrator happens to be the main kid of the movie, but old man voice. Only it's not an old man's voice. It's the voice of Chris Rock.
My story begins when I was a young boy.
This movie is narrated by Chris Rock. Hilarious comedian Chris Rock is narrating a movie about witches. And I'm supposed to take this seriously? How can you have him say anything and not laugh? You could not have picked a worse narrator.
Witches, they're real, and they hate children.
Impossible to take it seriously. Is this actually just a joke? Is this supposed to be like a funny, dumb kids comedy? And then as the movie goes on, you figure out, oh yeah, that's what they're going for. They want to make it like a dumb kids movie. Disrespectful. The structure and pacing is also way better in the original. They establish witches by having a very creepy story told to this child, and then right after that, he meets and interacts with a witch. When he realizes it's a witch, because, he remembers what witches are, and he gets scared, and he calls out to his grandmother, and the witch doesn't kill him. And that plot point comes back later on, because the Grand High Witch is like, what are you UK witches doing? You need to be killing all these kids, and you suck at it. The movie establishes plot points and connects the dots very well. The 2020 version takes these two plot points and switches them. So this new kid doesn't know what witches are yet, has an awkward interaction with what seems to be just a really weird lady at the store. A grocery store. And at the grocery store, this lady has a snake seemingly come out of her fucking armpit. So after this weird grocery store incident, then the new grandma tells this new kid in this new movie about her own story with a witch, and it's like not scary at all. It's about how her friend got turned into a chicken. They don't follow that tight structure that the first movie did, so you get these scenes that just linger. They get long and boring, and this movie just overindulges in what it thinks is funny. This movie runs 15 minutes longer than the other one, and it made a huge difference in the shittiness of the movie. The acting, holy moly. 1990 version does a wonderful job at setting up the relationship between the grandmother and the grandson. And on top of that, both of the actors do a great job. The kid can be a bit annoying at times, but overall he's good. The grandmother is a total badass. When she's originally telling this kid about witches, she's smoking a fucking cigar. And you're sitting there watching like, oh, I wouldn't fuck with this lady. 2020 version has the amazing Octavia Spencer. She's won an Oscar. She's great. And I gotta say, it's probably the worst performance I've ever seen out of her. I think mostly it's because she's not used to interacting with CG things. So when she's talking to a CG mouse, she doesn't know what to look at. It also didn't help much because the new kid in this new movie is so dull. When he was like a CG mouse and the kid actor was doing his voice acting, I could basically hear him yawning. Oh, go watch out for the witches. Oh, watch out. Oh no, grandma. Oh no. I'm sorry, kid. I'm sorry. Awful job. Awful. And that brings us to Anjelica Huston versus Anne Hathaway as the Grand High Witch. Anjelica Huston dominated her performance. She's the best part of that movie. She was intimidating and mean, and I'm pretty sure she had like a German accent. The Grand High Witch needs to be like a presence that other witches respect and fear, and that is Anjelica Huston. She's fantastic. She's fantastic. Anne Hathaway was cheesy as fuck. I know Anne Hathaway is a good actress, so I don't know if she was like told to do a bad job or she was mad about something, but yeah, she was probably the worst part of that movie. She was just silly in like a really bad way. Cheesy. Yeah, cheesy is like the best word I can do. Cheesy. And she did this like atrocious Transylvanian accent.
You see, girls? He would exterminate those brats.
She hammed it up in the worst possible way, and to be honest, it kind of hurt my feelings. Terrible. The special effects. The original movie uses practical effects and makeup backed by Jim Henson. Jim fucking Henson. The witches look gross and ugly. And the kids turning into mice is done so well, it's almost fascinating to watch. Sometimes they do use mouse puppets that look a bit sketchy, but I did notice that they use very clever camera tricks to transition from real mice to the puppet mice. It's really creative, and creativity is fun to watch. 2020 movie uses CG for everything, and cheap CG. It is bad CG. They take what was like a cool creative thing of the kids turning into a mouse and they turn it into a fart joke. The witches look fake and the Grand High Witch is laughable. Why does a movie from 30 years ago, made with less resources, look so much better? What the hell? It's shameful. Also, they give Anne Hathaway this like obnoxiously big mouth. So when she's not big mouth, she has like the Joker scars. Like, Joker scars? Come on. The way that they wrap up these movies was the biggest difference. The original movie, Luke goes home with his grandmother as a mouse. The Grand High Witch's assistant that we're introduced to earlier in the movie that the Grand High Witch treats like shit she decides to redeem herself and become a good witch. She finds Luke's home, she shows up, and she turns him back into a human. A happy ending where everyone's happy and everyone's hopeful. Such a nice way to end the movie. 2020, the mice go home with their families, and these mice children just have to accept that they're gonna be mice forever. And then remember how Chris Rock was narrating the story? Well, they cut to old mouse Chris Rock. He's been telling this story to a large group of children. And as he's wrapping up his little speech to these children, he gives this rally cry to get them to go and hunt down the witches of the world. He collected a group of children that he's sending out in the world to do his bidding. I feel like I could complain a lot more about the liberties that they took with this new movie. I just don't get it. It's awful. Don't even think about watching this new version. It's garbage. And the 1990 version is a classic that I will always love. Also, 1990 version available on Netflix. Anybody can watch that. A new version on HBO Max that apparently only I have. I just really didn't like this remake. I was bored and embarrassed for it. Just stick to the original one. If you've seen that already, don't ruin your childhood by watching this one, okay? All right, see ya. Subscribe! And I just love the classic movie so much. Even like the soundtrack. That soundtrack is ingrained in my brain like forever. Diddlin, 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 diddlin. Is that it? Hold on.